Hey Lars, hope you're doing well. Um, I was just gonna throw a bunch of stories out, and you know, you're welcome to use whatever you want. Um, Try to keep my hands off the table and from shaking the camera. Um, but yeah, I don't know what you exactly want, but I just thought I wrote a few notes down and thought I would just go through them, and you know, you can take what you want and throw the rest away. Um, my name is Joe Fay. I was a video clerk at Vulcan Video from 1999 until the summer of 2002. Still three of the greatest years of my life. And in large part due to Vulcan being in my life at that time. I was graduating from St. Edward's University in the midst of that. And my father passed away in the midst of that. And if it wasn't for my support group of friends and pseudo family that I met at Vulcan, I couldn't have made it through that time. Vulcan was very important to me, especially during that time, but really since then. I was hired in 1999 by John Bernard, who was the manager at that point, and I thank him. Thank you, John, if you're watching this, for really changing my life in many ways, or certainly improving my life by getting to work at Vulcan for those 3 years. Yeah, John hired me after I'd worked a few not menial. John hired me at Vulcan after some, kind of late teens, early 20s jobs, Tower Records and Toys R Us, since I had been robbed at gunpoint in the middle of the night at another video store called Video Oasis, which at that point, if old Austinites remember, Video Oasis was a full-service video store at Ben White and Manchac. Last I saw, the building was a Texas Tool Traders, but I'm not sure what it is now. But anyway, got hired on at Vulcan and had a really grand time while working at old Vulcan Video on Elizabeth Street. I remember things like playing Bill Hicks CDs until we could try to get somebody to crack and come up to the counter and demand to turn it off, which happened one time. We got one guy to, I think it was the Beelzebozo bit. We got a guy to come up to the counter and demand to turn it off, which of course we steadfastly refused to do. So that was fun, and the hubris of youth and all that. I remember it was like 2 months before Lord of the Rings, the first Lord of the Rings movie, Fellowship of the Ring, came out on video. We had gotten our hands on, not through the store, but I had gotten my hands on a bootleg of Fellowship of the Ring, and I thought it would be fun to take it to the video store and play it until somebody asked us to rent it, just so I could say no. And it happened like half a dozen times. And for whatever reason, I took great glee in that. Again, hubris of youth and all that. But yeah, it's things like that I remember. And the weirdest day working at Vulcan was September 11th, 2001. As I remember, I got up in the morning like everybody else. I got a phone call from somebody saying, there's stuff going on in New York. Some of the plane hit the World Trade Center, etc. And so it turned on the news. And as the morning wore on, I realized that I had to work a swing shift at Vulcan. And, long story short, I go into work and I I can't stand everybody. There were only maybe 3 or 4 people who came in to rent stuff that day, but I couldn't stand the fact that people were actually, history was going on, you know, all around them, and they had to just get the next like installment of The Prisoner, or it was just insane. But yeah, I spent 8 hours of September 11th at Vulcan Video, and in many ways, there's nowhere I'd rather be. But on a day like that, last thing you're thinking about is work, right? Vulcan Video gave me the chance to meet Lance Hahn, the late, great, lamented punk rocker and, cinephile par excellence, man. Lance Hahn was a wonderful guy, Hawaiian, Californian, the lead singer and songwriter of a Bay Area punk group called J Church. And I walk into Vulcan one day, and he's here's the new guy. This is Lance. And over the course of the next bit of time, I learned that he's like this kind of underground punk god. And we struck up a friendship, and we would do things like both work the closing shifts at Vulcan and get like a 12-pack of beer at midnight and just stay in the store after we'd close and just talking for hours and hours and hours. And sometimes we wouldn't leave till like 3 or 4 in the morning. And it was just wonderful. And I got to be really good friends with him. And, when he passed away, I think it was, sometime like 2007, as I remember, somewhere in there. Maybe later. I don't remember, but I really miss Lance. And, again, without Vulcan Video, I wouldn't have met Lance Hahn. And that would have been, a sad thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing about Vulcan that I remember most is the friends that I made. Kelly and Sam and Jennifer and just Lance, and just, they're still friends of mine, or they're, still in my life in one way or another. 3 or 4 Vulcan friends came to my dad's funeral in Arlington in the year 2000 when he passed away, when I was working there. Guys like Matt Cook, who introduced me to Guided by Voices and Pet Sounds and any number of, musical influences that are now kind of staples in my life. Paula J. Smith, who didn't work there officially, but she really kind of did. She would come and hang out with us for hours, and she had Paula's picks. So she was actually not an employee, not a clerk, didn't work at Vulcan at all. But because she was so awesome and picked such great movies, we let her have her own staff picks, quote unquote. Yeah, just the people are what made Vulcan, in all ways, customers and staff. The people are what I'm going to miss. But again, I don't have to miss them because they're in my life. But Vulcan really was the thread that brought us all together, really. I moved back in 2008 for a year to Austin, and Joe Shivers was the manager of the store at that point. And Brian Connolly was working there at the time. Kristen Ellisor was working there at the time. And I got to meet a whole new kind of younger group of really interesting cinephile weirdos. And they're still friends of mine too. We all saw each other again a couple years ago at the wedding of my friend Kelly, who I worked with and met at Vulcan in 1999. And again, it's a big chain of kind of friendships and coincidences and kind of 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon that Vulcan was really the center of, like 7 degrees of Vulcan video. Vulcan's also where I met Nirvana bassist Chris Novoselic. He was in town. He started a band with the Meat Puppets guys, like 2001, I think. I don't even remember what the band was called, but we heard he was kind of living in the area. And lo and behold, one day he walks in to rent. I don't remember what he rented, but I do remember that we made him fill out a membership application. And I kept that. I still have it somewhere, though I cannot find it. I know it's in a box somewhere. Back when you used to make people fill out a piece of paper for a video membership. I still have Chris Novoselic somewhere. God, this is all, 20, almost 20 years ago. So forgive me for time fading the old memories. One of the most fun times I had while I was working there was bringing the tall man from the Phantasm movies into Vulcan to show him where I worked. A long story short, I was his personal security during a Phantasm film festival at the Alamo Drafthouse, and he was staying at the Austin Motel right there on South Congress, and he wanted to see where I worked. So I took the tall man into work at Vulcan and showed him around, and got a few pictures of him in there with me, which I still have somewhere. And I remember he recommended the Apu trilogy. That was his big recommendation from the day. And, he's the reason that I like those movies. And again, this moment of kismet when I bring the tall man into Vulcan to show him where I work, and he finds the Apu trilogy on the shelf and tells me that I have to watch it because it's really great. And so I did, and so it is. And Vulcan Video is what brought that together. So, pretty amazing stuff. Yeah. Lars, I hope you can use some of this stuff. I guess I should give one last little farewell. I'd really like to thank Diane and her family for really riding that train that was Vulcan Video for so long, and providing so many people, both staff and customers, with one of the best video libraries I've ever been a part of and ever seen, and really staying committed to home video and to the Austin community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah. Rest in peace, Vulcan Video. You will be missed. I remember another story. Hopefully I won't go on like this for too long, but when I was working at Vulcan, it was the time when kind of VHS was, I worked there kind of when VHS was phasing out and DVD was coming in. And so early on, we used to kind of think, well, which DVD should we get? Who's going to come in and rent DVDs? And so I remember my first big recommendation was Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Feast. And I told the manager, John, I said, you have to get this. This will fly off the shelf all the time, every week. H.D. Lewis is awesome. And so, we have to get this. And so he did. He bought the movie and we put it on the shelf. and I think it was like a year before anybody rented it. So um, I don't know what that means, but probably says more about my shitty taste than anything else. But yeah, I just remember that sticks out as kind of a moment when I made a recommendation that went pretty much nowhere for a long time. And we always had staff picks and stuff like that. And I just remember everybody that I would recommend at any point, to anyone, anytime. The Changeling. I remember that being my go-to move, because the horror section was right. It was one of the closest sections to the video counter. And so I would just go over there and be like, you want a scary movie? You got to check this shit out, man. And I would just hand them the Changeling and then wait for them to come back the next, day or two and tell me how great it was. And most people did. So there you go. Yeah. Lars, I think that's it, man. I don't know if you can use any of this, but I felt like giving it a try for you. So let me know if you need anything else, and take care of yourself. Thanks.